So this year's Oscar nominations for Best Picture, in my opinion, are a bit of a joke. I don't think I've ever seen so many average films, or even, I wouldn't even say any of them are particularly good. I'd say a couple of them are decent, the ones I've seen, but it's super disappointing. And what I want to say in this video is how much more the snubs of the past hurt when you see the films that are nominated this year. So quickly to remind everyone what the Best Picture nominations are, you have Black Panther, BlackKklansman, Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favourite, Roma, Green Book, A Star Is Born, and Vice. And for this video, because I want to be fair, I'm only going to target the ones I've seen plus Bohemian Rhapsody because I know lots of people have seen it and saying how average it is. But I'm going to target Vice, I'm going to target Bohemian Rhapsody, BlackKklansman, and Black Panther in particular, those two, because I think those movies are so bang average I cannot even believe they have been nominated for Best Picture. So let's start with the best one I think I saw, Vice. So I particularly liked Vice. I like the direction, I like the performances in particular. You know, Christian Bale as Dick Cheney was seriously amazing. He should definitely be nominated for an Oscar, and I think he should definitely win for Best Actor. He was so good. The weight gain really transforms his performance, and just, you can't really believe you're watching Christian Bale. And I know that's kind of a cliche thing to say, you know, he is Dick Cheney or he is this character, for example, but he definitely is. He looks insanely different. You know, he's is he 45, 46-year-old man playing like a 70-something, and you know, he just insane performance, so good. And then you have people like Sam Rockwell, who I don't think deserved to be nominated, but he was really good, but I don't think he was in it enough. And then you have other people like Steve Carell was really good, even though he didn't really resemble Rumsfeld as much as Christian Bale and Sam Rockwell resembled their historical characters. And then you have Amy Adams as well. They're all really good. And then the style of the film was kind of interesting. You know, they had that Shakespeare scene where it had Dick and his wife talking like Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. Then you had the scene that was trying to paint how Dick Cheney could make the most absurd things sound reasonable. You know, when he's talking about all of them going into the garden to jerk off to the press, you know, when he's part of the Ford administration. That was clever. And then there was a really powerful scene, you know, when George Bush is giving his speech about invading Iraq on the night they start the invasion, and the camera pans down to Bush's leg and he's like really like shaking it and everything. Then it cuts to Iraq where you see a house and you can hear the bombs falling outside, and you cut to under a table and you see an Iraqi dad with his family and his leg is shaking just like Bush's. And I thought that was so powerful, that scene, and just the whole thing made you realise how angry you were about the Iraq war still to this day, and how much, you know, terrible things it's done to my country, it's done to the US, because I think McKay did a really good point of linking all this stuff you're watching, even though it's in the early 2000s, linking that to ISIS and terrorist attacks across Europe that have gone on to in the last couple of years, you know, in Paris, in London and everything. So I thought it was a really powerful film, good performances, cleverly edited, lots of nice montages, lots of good ways of tying, you know, you see how people who've caused a lot of the misery today have been around in politics for years, since like Nixon and stuff. And my one sort of problem with the film is that I don't think it really knew who it wanted to appeal for. So for example, it mentions Antonin Scalia, it mentions Roger Ailes, and kind of talks about them for like maybe 30 seconds, maybe even less, like 20 seconds. But if you don't know politics, you're not going to know who these people are, but it doesn't go in depth enough to explain it to someone who doesn't know, but it doesn't tell you anything new if you know these people are already. So I think it was something the film didn't do as well as something like The Big Short, which like educates you when you don't know. I think this film does educate you, but in some instances I think it's talking about stuff only people who like this stuff would know, but it won't educate the people who don't, because it's just hard someone's put a face on these people. Like if you're seeing Roger Ailes in the 1960s, do most people know who Roger Ailes is, like the general public? I would say no. And also the timeline was kind of weird. It kept jumping around from the 60s, 70s, 90s, whatever. It jumped around way too much, in my opinion. I think something like Steve Jobs, the Danny Boyle film, did a biopic in a really clever way, like having 3 scenes across 3 decades about, and then showing how the character had changed, showing how his relationships had changed. I thought that was really interesting. But overall, I'd say Vice maybe get a nomination in several different years. I think it was okay, and I think because the performances elevate it to quite a high level, I think that's an okay nomination. I don't think it's Best Picture material, but at the same time I don't think it's out of place, and I think it's particularly strong this year compared to the rest of the films that I've seen. So I'll give that one a bit of a pass. So next we get onto Black Panther, and I can't even understand why this film is nominated. It wasn't even the best superhero movie, I've ever seen, and it also pisses me off about films that haven't been nominated in the past. So Black Panther is obviously, you know, a very massive cultural phenomenon. It made more money than Avengers in America, I'm pretty sure, or was it worldwide? But it made a ton of money. It's a big landmark because it's this first mainstream black superhero movie, and I obviously really appreciate that. It's directed by Ryan Coogler, who's obviously directed things like Creed and other things that deal with black issues, and I think it's overall a decent film, but I wouldn't even say it's particularly good. I'd say Avengers is way better. If you want to nominate something, nominate Avengers. Don't nominate like this crap. I call it crap. It's not exactly bad, but I think it's insane that it's been nominated for Best Picture. Like, I can't even wrap my head around it, because unlike BlackKklansman, I don't even think it has a particularly strong message. You know, Michael B. Jordan's character says some interesting things about Africa and everything like that, and there's a kind of an interesting dynamic between him and Black Panther, but at the same time, it's not really saying much. It's just a bog standard superhero movie. You know, Aquaman has basically the same story as Black Panther. Because it's such a cultural achievement, did they feel it had to be nominated? I think it's totally insane. I think it's the worst Best Picture nominee in years. I can't think of anything that's been worse than this, and I can't believe it's been nominated. And what it actually makes me angry for, you can see the poster behind me, Logan was so much better than Black Panther. You know, as a film, it was quality. You don't even have to watch the other ones to get across how good Logan is. You know, filmically really good. The performances are insane, especially from Hugh Jackman. And it's a proper movie that also happens to be a superhero film, while Black Panther, it's just a bog standard superhero movie with some interesting cultural themes tied in. But it really does nothing special in my opinion. And I actually can't believe it's been nominated. And like I'm saying, unlike BlackKklansman, which I think is a worse movie, there's not even like a social message there to cling on to and be like, this is why Black Panther should win Best Picture. And I saw articles today, The Guardian, it should win. Are you fucking joking me? No way in hell. And then your mind goes back to The Dark Knight in 2008. It didn't get a nomination for Best Picture. And The Dark Knight was probably the best superhero movie ever created. It's one of the best movies of the last 20 years, definitely. And I don't even love superhero movies like a ton, but I think that is so good, and that didn't get nominated. So like my video says, it makes the old snubs hurt even more, because it's like, how the fuck did this get nominated and Logan and The Dark Knight never did, despite being insanely better than Black Panther? Like, I don't think anyone really thinks Black Panther should be nominated for Best Picture. Honestly, if you like films, even if you kind of like films, you know it is not Best Picture material. Best Film of the Year is Black Panther. It's not even better than Avengers. And Avengers, I think, if we're talking about cultural phenomenons, I think Avengers has a better argument, because it's 10 years of sequels. Can you think of anything that's had 10 years of straight sequels after sequel after sequel, where it all ties in, and then you have this massive film where everyone is in it? I think that's a bigger achievement, because back in the days, when you had many sequels, it used to be because the franchise was dying and it was shit. Like, I think Psycho has like 4 sequels, not because each one is great, it's because they're just trying to milk a franchise, whereas this is an interconnected story, and it all culminates in these 2 films. You know, the next one is coming out this year, and I think that's a bigger cultural achievement. So now let's get into BlackKklansman. Now, BlackKklansman, I liked as an educational film, right? And you know, black rights stuff is something I've covered a lot in like my history degree and everything, and I'm really into it, and I'm really passionate about these sort of issues. And BlackKklansman did some interesting things, and I definitely like the way they showed the through line between David Duke normalising white supremacy in sort of a nice manner. Like, he made it politically normal, because, you know, he wears the suit, he's not wearing the hoods really anymore in public, not burning the crosses, he's the polite face of it, and it takes that through line over to Donald Trump, which I think is really interesting. And that last scene at the end with Donald Trump's speech over the Charlottesville footage, you know, and yeah, footage of David Duke endorsing Donald Trump, and I think that's all really powerful. And then you have some good performances. Well, some good performances. I'd say Adam Driver is probably the only noteworthy performance, because I don't actually think anyone else was that good. And the film, just like, the quality of the film was really not Best Picture material. So first of all, the pacing was awful. Like, taking about, I'd say they're 5 minutes, maybe a bit less, they felt really long. 2 speeches in the film lecturing you on the politics of it. It just feels, it ruins the flow, and I think it ruins, you know, how effective this film should be. So you have the first one done by Stokely Carmichael. I forgot what his African name is, so apologies for that. And he gives a really good speech about, you know, being black and everything like that. Black is beautiful, and I think that was a really, it was a good scene without context. And I think one of them would have been fine. But then later you have another scene, which in itself is actually a really good scene. You have Harry Belafonte, you know, who's that famous black actor, you know, has his own talk show back in the day, playing a character talking about a really racist film that came out in the early 1900s and talking about how that inspired white people to go kill black people and stuff like that. And it crosses that with, while he's talking about that, the KKK in the film are watching it and loving it as part of an initiation ceremony for Adam Driver's character. And that was also a really good scene and really, really powerful. But at the same time, having two of these scenes in the movie ruin the flow of it. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, I've been watching someone giving me a speech for like 10 minutes of this film, and obviously it doesn't sound too much, but it just ruined the pacing for me. And then you have the whole gimmick of the film. You know, how they advertised this was so dishonest. It was like, oh, a black person joins the KKK. Oh, that's such a good gimmick. But that doesn't even happen. He literally rings up, and then by accident, and then he gets caught, and then Adam Driver's like, well, I guess I'll go be, you know, the person. And then for some reason, I know it happened in real life, but they keep him on the phone and he keeps talking while Adam Driver does it in person to the same people the black Ron Stallworth is talking to on the phone. And it just makes really no sense to me. And I know it did happen, which is kind of weird, but like the gimmick of the film isn't really there. And it is an interesting sort of undercover cop story, and Adam Driver is very good. And seeing, you know, the different facets of white supremacy, you know, the cast of characters who are in the KKK, they kind of have a good range. You have like the militant crazies, the fat like guy who jokes around a lot, but he doesn't really seem into it. He just wants to be in it for like a sense of community. You have the crazy wife, and you have the more like not peaceful, but the people more like David Duke who kind of want to get it through political means rather than violence. And Topher Grace was really good as David Duke. I'll give him that, because, you know, displaying how racist this guy was, but how normal he tried to be. And, you know, when Ron Stallworth actually meets him, the black one, and then like how racist he is, that's kind of interesting. But at the same time, like, it's just not at that level. It's not, like I'm saying, Vice is a better movie and it has way, way better performances, like insane performances. This is an okay movie with standard performances, and I don't think anyone particularly stands out. And how I've been describing it to my friends is, it feels like that film you used to see when you went on a film trip, you know, I did film A-level, and you see it and you're like, oh yeah, that was pretty good, I saw it for free, that was decent. And you wouldn't really think about it ever again. And that's why I'm getting so heated that it's nominated for Best Picture. But at least I can understand it, because it has a message about Donald Trump, racism, and the legacy of racism in America, which I appreciate the message. I think everyone should see BlackKklansman. Well, I don't think everyone should see Black Panther. I think everyone should see BlackKklansman and see Vice. But again, it shouldn't be nominated for Best Picture. And contrast BlackKklansman to 12 Years a Slave, and you'll see how you can do something like that and make a good movie as well. BlackKklansman mainly tells and doesn't show. And there's one other thing I want to point out. For someone like Spike Lee to not tackle police brutality in this film, I think is kind of weird. So for example, at the end, just one racist policeman in the police department, where Ron Stallworth is the first black cop ever to work there, but they only have one racist policeman, he gets busted at the end for being racist, and everyone else in the police department is really happy about it. And it's just so unbelievable, because even today there's loads of neo-Nazis in the police, they cover each other's arse so much. Today, in 2019, there's so much racism in the American police force, and it just seems really odd where it's tied up in a neat bow, where the only racist in the police force, you know, the only single racist has been caught by the end and everything's great. I don't know, I think it was really, really weird. So overall, average film, like C+ I'd give it, or something like that, and I can't believe it's been nominated for Best Picture. And now we get to Bohemian Rhapsody, and I haven't actually seen it, and I really like Rami Malek. He's, you know, from Mr. Robot, which is my favourite TV show of all time, and I hope he wins Best Actor just so people go and see Mr. Robot more. But I also really think Christian Bale deserves Best Actor. But at the same time, I've heard how this film isn't very good. It doesn't really deal with the gay issues and everything like that, and it's kind of good for seeing the music, and if you like Queen, you're gonna like this movie. But again, it's a biopic, and it's kind of like Oscar baity as well. And also it kind of weirds me out, you know, Bryan Singer directed this movie, and, you know, allegedly he has had, you know, numerous sexual assault claims at him from people who were like 15 when he did it to them and everything like that, so that's kind of makes me a bit uncomfortable. I know he was fired from the film. And I've heard similar things about Green Book, like how it makes the oppressor, the white person, and the oppressed sort of both seem like the heroes in this story, which I don't really like. I've heard some criticism from like Black Twitter and everything. And A Star Is Born, and I've heard good things about that. So I'll give a pass to Roma, Green Book, and The Star Is Born, and to Vice, and The Favourite. So if it was just them, I wouldn't mind so much. But then you have Bohemian Rhapsody, BlackKklansman, Black Panther, and it just makes me so angry. So for example, you see a poster behind me, Blade Runner last year, 2017 it came out, at the end of 2017, didn't get nominated for Best Picture. I think it's one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life. I think it is insanely good, and just the things it makes you feel, it gets you on two levels. So the visual craft and effects of Blade Runner 2049 are like mind-blowing. It's like the best, creating a world that is so immersive and so believable, but while keeping it vague to let your mind run wild. You see like things like posters and adverts for stuff from the USSR in 2049, and that just gets your head racing, and you have all these things, talking about the nature of humanity, AI, what makes us human. It is really thought-provoking, and it's 2 hours and 40 minutes, but it just flies by because it's such a good film with great performances. Harrison Ford is really good in that film, and so is Ryan Gosling and people like Robin Wright, and even little cameos from Dave Bautista and stuff, and I think it's really effective. Jared Leto is very good in it as well. And that is just such, on all levels, that is such a good movie. It just sort of blows you away when you watch it. Not a snub as bad as these things, but Dunkirk didn't win Best Picture, which I'm kind of salty about as well, because I think that was one of the best movies I've seen in a while, and one of the best war movies I think ever made, to be honest. Just the way it changes the war movie into like a thriller. You don't even see the Germans till right at the end, and then they're out of focus. I think it's so amazing. And being a British person, and there's a lot to be cynical about being British and our nationalism and shit, but that's one moment. Sort of World War II is the one thing in history you can point to, be like, that's when we were the good guys. These guys were heroes. People my own age, people younger, on that beach and getting home and then going to fight again. And then facing all this stuff. It's just insane to me, and it was done in such an effective way. Amazing score, amazingly shot. I love that movie so much, and that got snubbed because it didn't win. These other, Blade Runner didn't even get nominated, which is just a piss take, and neither did Logan or A Dark Knight. So that's really my thoughts on all the Best Picture nominees. I am actually really pissed off, and it just makes everything else hurt even more. The stuff I really loved before not getting nominated, particularly Blade Runner, Logan, and A Dark Knight in the past. Compare those three to BlackKklansman, Black Panther, and Bohemian Rhapsody. Is literally no competition what is better. Blade Runner is so much better than all of them, and it got completely snubbed, and these films are shit. Some of them, Black Panther in particular, I have no love for, and I just really pissed off that's been nominated, as I have with BlackKklansman. I just think they're both really average films, but at least BlackKklansman has a nice message. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you like this kind of content, you can find me at the Tabernacle on Twitter and Instagram. I also have a WordPress where I've actually reviewed Vice, and I have reviewed BlackKklansman, so you go check that out. It's just the Tabernacle at WordPress as well. And if you've made it this far, thank you for watching.